Hi everyone, Paul Thomas here, CTO at Omniscient, and I'm here to give you a quick demonstration of the basics of using our Omni CLM software. We have a beta release out at the moment, so it only contains a very basic level of functionality. We would absolutely love your feedback on what you think is good or bad, where you think we're going in the right direction, where you have ideas, etc. Please do let us know. We would love to iterate this in response to your needs. With that, I'm going to get started with the demo. I'm in, what you can see here is that I am in a GitHub code space. I'm in a completely blank repository. There are no files whatsoever in here at all. It's completely empty. I'm going to start completely from scratch. And the first thing I'm going to do is install our extension. So if I go on to the extensions marketplace, and you should be able to do all of this, I should say, in any VS Code environment. And if not, we also have a CLI that you can use if you want to embed this into automations, CI/CD pipelines, etc. Or if you just want to use it from the command line, then you can use the CLI. It has all the same functionality. So I will search for Omni CLM, and top result, here we are. And I'm going to click install, and then I've installed it. You might get prompted there to do a walkthrough of the demo I'm about to show you. You may also need to say that you trust us as a publisher. I will leave that up to you, but I promise we're good guys, really. But yes, so we've installed this CLM, and the first thing you'll notice is this extra icon has appeared on the left-hand side, the Omni Explorer. And this is a window we've put together that should be the main place that you go to browse through all of the configurations that you're managing within this repository and the semantic models which then manage the schemas, which then manage the configurations. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But just to say that this is probably the best place to interact with everything. If I go back to the File Explorer, you'll see that the repo is still completely empty. We haven't done anything yet. And as suggested back in the Omni Explorer, we still need to go through initialization. Omni CLM needs some configuration files in the repo to tell it what to do, where to look for things, and so on. And in order to set that up with a default installation, I'm going to Control-Shift-P. And you might need to type Omni here to narrow down the search options, but I've got a few saved up here. And the first thing I'm going to do is initialize Omni tools. So I'll click that. I'm prompted to enter a namespace. Don't stress too much about that namespace for now. I'm certainly going to just put demo here. We may not keep namespace. It's a debated feature, but it's there nonetheless for now. And as you can see here, you can give some feedback directly from this link. I'm going to close that down, and I'll close that down. But you can see that having set up the namespace, we've got this sort of namespace here, but it's still completely empty. There's still nothing underneath it. If I do go to the File Explorer, you'll see some folders have been set up. You've got a .omni folder, which has some backend configuration in it that you probably don't need to worry about for now. We have a config files folder, which is where Omni is going to look for configurations that it wants to manage. And then we have an Omni file without the dot. This, as the README will explain, has a fixed file structure that Omni expects to see. And this is where Omni puts all of its semantic models and schemas that it uses to manage configurations. So we've got a basic setup, but we still don't have anything that we're actually managing. We haven't got any configurations, and we haven't got any semantic models. And in order to demonstrate all of this stuff to you, I'm going to use the built-in demo that comes packaged with the extension itself. So I'm going to, again, Control-Shift-P, and I'm going to create demo files. This takes a couple of seconds. But once it is done, all I need to do is refresh these windows. And you'll see that now we've actually got some content. Now, I'm not going to worry about models for a second. I'm going to start off with these configurations. And what we're imagining is that we are managing the configuration of a set of thermostats in my house that are controlling the temperatures in various rooms of my house. So there's a single piece of software that is multi-tenanted or reconfigured for each thermostat, and each one has its own configuration. If I click on this one, I'm taken to the file. And as you can see, it has a very simple setup for now. It has a name, lounge thermostat. It has a schedule, which is days of the week. And then underneath each day of the week, you have 24-hour clock times, and each time corresponds to a target temperature that the thermostat needs to try and achieve. The only other thing it also has is this schema here. And this, if I go through and click on this schema, it will show me the schema that is used to determine whether those configurations have valid settings in them or not. We're using JSON schema for all of this, a very standard standard for managing schemas of JSON documents. If you have no experience of JSON schema, don't worry too much about it. Probably one of the main things Omni CLM is intended to do is prevent you having to know too much about JSON schema in order to use it. But certainly this schema does things like say that you can only have days of the week underneath the schedule property, and this complex regex here is just making sure that all of the properties underneath any of these days of the week are 24-hour clock lines. And there's a bunch of other stuff in there, but again, you shouldn't need to worry too much about that. So we've got this schema, and if I scroll down the bottom of this schema, you'll see that this schema itself links up to a model. Now, this is where things get Omni CLM specific. Up to this point, we've been using pretty standard JSON schema setup. The layer that we add on top of JSON schema is to define what we call a semantic model, which is consists of a base schema, an initial schema, and then a set of migrations that get you from that schema into future versions of your data model. And that has some really useful and powerful consequences, which I'll show to you now. So if I click into this model and scroll up to the top, you'll see that, as I just said, you've got some IDs and descriptions and things, but one of the main components of a semantic model is this base schema. And if you were looking hard enough at the schema that we were just looking at, you will realize that this schema or this content here is pretty much a carbon copy of that schema. And that's its starting point. What it has in addition to that base schema, as I also just said, are these migrations, which is a simple array of these migration objects. And each migration object has a description. It tells you which schema version it migrates from, which schema version it migrates to. In this case, we're doing a patch bump on the base schema. And then it has a set of steps, which are the actual steps, transformations that you need to go to get to the next schema. In this case, all we're doing is a move. And what we're moving is the schedule object to a new location, schedules. So we're renaming it and just pluralizing it. Just quickly to emphasize this point, that would, in a lot of compatibility systems, that would be a breaking change, because the new data objects that have schedules would be incompatible with the old objects or old software that expected schedule, and vice versa. That could very easily end up being a major release. It can have all sorts of gnarly consequences in terms of your release plan and so on. But I'm going to show you how semantic models make this an incredibly trivial, reversible, very flexible, on-demand, automatic change to make. So we define this schedule and schedules, and what the semantic model will then be able to do is generate a new schema from it. So this schema here, so we started off with the base schema, which was the one we were just looking at. If I then open version 1, you'll see that it's pretty much identical, except that this schedules object here, which was originally schedule, has been correctly renamed. And in addition to that, it's also noticed that in the required section, we're requiring both the name and schedules objects to exist, where we were requiring the name and schedule objects to exist. So it's correctly renamed schedule wherever that crops up in your schema. It understands JSON schema well enough, and it understands the intent of what you want to do well enough to handle all of that for you. You don't have to think through all of those various gnarly edge cases that can crop up when you're using JSON schema. And if you have had to use JSON schema in relative anger, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. To further demonstrate that we are automatically generating these schemas, let me just quickly go to the Explorer and do something that you shouldn't really need to do, but is quite fun to demonstrate. I'm going to delete all of those schemas. Now, firstly, a whole bunch of stuff goes red because the schemas that it's looking for no longer exist. It can't find them. And so it doesn't know how to validate these files. And you get a whole bunch of other warnings as well. But if I, again, Control-Shift-P and I click Generate Schemas, Omni CLM goes away to the semantic model, starts off with that base schema, and then applies each of these migrations in turn to generate all of the remaining, all of the other schemas as well. So it is used to automatically generate schemas from a relatively simple and user-friendly definition of semantically what you're trying to achieve in evolving your data model. That's one of the most powerful features about this system. The other thing that it can do, if I do go to one of my configurations, I'm going to right-click, I'm going to go to Omni Tools, and I'm going to migrate to new version. If I say, let's do the migration we've been talking about. If I go to this one, select 0.0.1, and if I then press OK, and it checks that I want to overwrite it, and I'll say OK, you could put it in a new location if you like. Other than sorting the keys a little bit, you'll note that schedules has been created and that we're now at 0.0.1 schema instead of 0.0.0. I can also, Omni CLM also understands how to reverse migrations as well. So you don't just understand how to move from 0 to 1, you also know how to go back from 1 to 0. And if I, again, just click OK on all of this, you'll see that it gets back to schedule and back to 0.0.0. Okay. If we have a quick look at the other migrations in here, we've got a migration from .1 to .2. And in this case, we're renaming from schedules to daily schedule, really just to sort of hammer home this renaming thing. But then a slightly more interesting transformation after this, which migrates from Celsius to Kelvin. So we've got these, if we go back to the configuration, we've got these temperatures in Celsius. And let's say we're wanting to be a bit more scientifically rigorous and we're wanting to put those in SI units, so in Kelvin. The difficulty here is that rather than having one place where I want to apply a change, I now want to find every single one of these temperatures, regardless of exactly what 24-hour clock time I've used, regardless of which day of the week it's under. So we need a way of referencing several different locations in a JSON object simultaneously or one after the other, and being able to apply the same translation to several different places in your JSON document. So what we use there is this scope field, okay? And as you can see, this scope field looks like a kind of path into your JSON object where we go into daily schedule, and then actually each individual token in this path is a regular expression that is matched against the entries at that level. So what I'm saying is daily schedule, and then go into every single element underneath daily schedule, and then every single element underneath every single element underneath daily schedule. Okay, so I'm pointing at every single temperature I can find, which is go into, well, schedule technically at this point, and then into the days of the week, and then into the 24-hour clock times, and then apply the migration to each of these things. That's what that scope section is doing. We can get into more detail of that if and when required, but hopefully that makes some level of sense at least. So what I can then do, I'm just going to shoot for the moon here, and I'm going to go all the way from 0 to 3 in one go. And I'm going to press OK, and I press OK again. And yeah, as you can see, we've successfully migrated not just from schedule to schedules, but also to daily schedule. And then it's also applied on top of that migration from centigrade to Kelvin. And as before, I can go all the way back again to 0. Okay. And it goes back to schedule and back to Celsius temperatures. The key sort of power of all of this, it's great to be able to do all of this. If you had, say, 100 different rooms that you were managing the configuration of, being able to apply a single migration really quickly to all of your configurations is obviously very powerful in a repository like this. But where it's also potentially incredibly powerful is actually in your microservices or your complex system architecture when you do this on demand. So where you query for a particular configuration and you receive it, and it's in an old or potentially new version, and you need to migrate it, having access to this semantic model and being able to leverage this model to just automatically migrate all of your configurations to whatever version you need them to be, whenever you need to do it, and only needing one single source of truth for all of that information, for both schema generation and for data migration. That's the key power that we're trying to unlock with this functionality in Omni CLM. There's lots of other things that we have planned as well. There's lots of other things a few other things I could demonstrate here. But I think hopefully that gives you a good taster, gives you something to go on. Please do play around with it yourselves. And as I say, please do come and give us some feedback. You can go to our website. We would love to hear from you. Thank you very much.